G'day there guys, new haircut, who dis? It's your main man Markee and welcome back to another episode of r/AmiTheA. Now if you love today's bloody good content, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the Now if you like today's bloody good episode, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn on the barbie, smash like on this episode, and look forward to some great stories. Thank you. Posted by user AdOpen1605. Titled, Am I the a-hole for bluntly telling the people I work with that no, not everyone in the office can afford to buy a house? My co-workers are usually pretty good to work with. The average salary for them is around $100,000 plus. I'm their administrative assistant and I make about $32,000. Anyway, some of the things they say are kinda weird. For example, this one woman was shocked that I'd never had any of my clothes tailored before. I think they just really caught up in their own reality, you know? Like in their world, everyone is beautiful and skinny and rich with purebred dogs and perfect white teeth. I was helping to organize and someone announced they finally bought their first house. The conversation continued on to them kinda being rude and saying like, I don't get why you people think no one can afford to buy a house. It's not that hard. And someone was like, yeah, I can't imagine being in my 30s and still renting. I'd feel like such a failure. And they all agreed. I don't usually get upset about the crap they're talking about, but I finally had it and was like, I'm 38 and rent. I don't think I'm a failure. One of them was like, oh, well, we weren't talking about you. It's just that all these people always go on and on about how it's impossible to save for a down payment. I was just like, yeah, it is pretty hard. It was obvious the whole atmosphere in the room changed, so I was like, anyway, and got up and left to the main office to get back to work. Later on, one of the other women in the office came up and was like, hey, I'm sorry about earlier. I didn't mean to offend you. It got kinda awkward in there. I said, yeah, it was pretty awkward listening to them talk about how they'd feel like a failure if they were in my shoes. She said that's not what she meant. She actually meant that it felt like I was trying to call attention to the wage gap like it was their fault, and that if I wanted to better myself, they could help me figure out how to apply to schools and work my way up just like they did. I said a kind of half-hearted thanks. It's been weird in the office since then. I know money is one of those no-no topics, but it's not like it's a secret that I only make what I make. Am I the a-hole? And I forgot to add, we don't have HR, and this really isn't an HR thing. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the a-hole. I think I did make it awkward, and I guess I could have just kept my mouth shut. I didn't mean to make it into a poor me thing, but I guess it came across that way. I don't know. I don't think that inserting yourself into the conversation and having it be a poor me thing is an a-hole thing to do in all honesty. You're providing a counterpoint to their conversation, whether warranted or not. I still believe that counterpoint was valid. Office talk is office talk, and some people are gonna say some socially unacceptable stuff, and here they were kinda shaming you indirectly for not making as much money as them. You could have kept it to yourself, sure, as I'm sure they were expecting you to, but you spoke up to join in on the conversation, and I can respect that. Your co-worker there didn't really do you any favors with that little follow-up conversation either. That was strange. For this one though, I'm going not the a-hole. Now in the comments, SilverThing2724 says, not the a-hole. They are in an echo chamber filled with people just as privileged as them. They were called out on it, and instead of taking this embarrassing lesson to heart, they doubled down and are blaming you. Like, they apologized, but instead of acknowledging that they are uniquely privileged and not everyone can get where they are, they offered to help you get your life together. That is wholly inappropriate. It sounds like it was just one of them that spoke rudely, so I wouldn't blame everyone in the office homeowner club, but I agree with this otherwise. But nobody said, she's right, we're coming from it with a very privileged point of view. As someone who purchased a house young and has been both hardworking but more importantly, lucky, when older adults at the office comment on how other millennials should be responsible like me, I point out all the ways it actually is hard and the privileges that enable me to do it, rather than pretending it's feasible for everyone. I think it's valuable to push back. This 100%. I've been a homeowner for most of my adult life. I was lucky as hell. I worked very hard and moved up, but without an amazingly generous gift to start, I would never get where I am now. Not the a-hole. You called them on their snobbery directly, not rudely, and they were rightly embarrassed. Turning it on you with condescending offers to better yourself was an extra helping of poo. Your coworkers are pretty insensitive. And OP replies, the better myself thing kind of stung, honestly. I know I don't make a lot of money, but I'm really comfortable and happy in my life. Not everyone can be a computer programmer, software engineer, digital marketing goddess. My daddy always said the world needs sandwich makers. The deal is, privileged people are usually uncomfortable being faced with it. They like the idea that whatever position they have is earned, and that anyone else could have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps and achieved the same. And the flip side of that is, of course, that people who haven't earned it aren't unlucky or not afforded the same privilege. No, the reason must be that they didn't try hard enough. The privileged were born on third base, but think they hit a triple. Given that it's literally impossible to pull oneself up by your bootstraps, and the phrasing was at one point meant to mean that it's impossible to do, I find the fact that it's used the way it is funny and horrifying at the same time. It definitely shows the disconnect between those that are better off and those that aren't, and tries to disconnect from reality the fact that pretty much anyone who has gotten anywhere has had help along the way. Holy crap, not the a-hole. Homeownership isn't for everyone for a variety of reasons, especially since 2008. I bought in 2005 because I was pressured into it. Since then, I have lived in constant fear that something would break and I wouldn't have enough money to fix it. As an owner, if the roof leaks or the water heater goes up, that's on me. I can't just call the landlord. If I'm stalked by a neighbor, I can't just break a lease and move. Yeah, equity is nice, but there's so much more than equity that factors into it. Given the option, I'd never have bought as early as I did. It wasn't smart. You do you, hun. If owning isn't for you, then I applaud your willingness to say it no matter what your coworker says. My parents lived with my dad's mum and his aunt for about 6 years until my dad saved enough for a deposit. He was an engineer, but he started as an apprentice, which back then was a 7-year toil minimum. And although houses were cheaper, wages were also crap. The house they got, a row home, aka terraced, was a dump with mildew, rotten floorboards, outdated plumbing and electric, which my dad fixed up by himself over time. When the roof leaked one year, we had to sell the car, which was also a piece of crap, to get the money to fix it. My dad used a push bike to get to work for years after. I've never understood people who say it used to be cheap. In my experience, it never has. Posted by user, Am I the A-hole babysitting post? Titled, Am I the A-hole for walking out after being told one kid was autistic and another kid had a deathly food allergy? So I, female 16, babysit on weekends for some extra money. I used to babysit for this one lady, Diana, and her 2 kids, 1 female and 4 male, every day over the summer while Deanna worked. Deanna texted me last week and asked if she can give her friend Jennifer, who has 2 kids, 6 male and 4 female, my number because it was her husband's birthday and they wanted to go out. I said sure, and Jennifer texted me asking about my rates, references, when I was trained in CPR, and a lot of other questions. Not gonna lie, it felt kinda weird to me, but some people are overprotective, so I went with it. Yesterday, I got to their house and they left money for us to order food, and right before they walked out the door, Jennifer handed me an EpiPen and said, 6 male is deathly allergic to peanuts, and 4 female is autistic and has sensory issues, so get her some chicken nuggets. It took a second for me to process that, but I gave back the EpiPen and said, I'm sorry, but I'm not equipped to take care of your kids. And I left. Well, Jennifer is mad that I ruined their night, and has been talking crap about me to Diana, but once Diana heard the real story, she apologized and said she'd talk to Jennifer. Am I the a-hole for walking out of a babysitting job when I learned one kid has a deathly allergy and the other kid was autistic? Edit. I wanted to add that I spent 6 months volunteering in a special needs classroom, and I have some health issues, so I know how to give shots, although I've never used an EpiPen. So if they would have told me before, I probably would have taken the job and just watched a few videos on how to use an EpiPen. I was mostly just in shock and worried that other things would come up too that they didn't tell me about. It sucks that they had to cancel their plans, sure, and they were mad at you in that moment, and for sure they could logic up some reason that you were an a-hole and they're saints and blah blah blah, but really, they sprung up something that you're absolutely not equipped and confident in dealing with on you last minute, and expected you to be cool with it. That's some serious negligence on their part, and it just sounds like they're asking for something to go wrong with their kids, being left with someone not able to handle their care. It's not the kids' faults they were born that way, but it is the parents' faults for knowingly covering up those facts. Add on to that them being mad at you for ruining their nights again, when they knew doing this to you was very likely to happen. They can't have their cake and eat it too in this situation. That's all kinds of messed up. I'm going not the a-hole on this one, OP. You did the right thing. Now in the comments, Verity Fox says, not the a-hole. Jennifer should have supplied this information well before the point she did. You were well within your rights to refuse the job if you did not feel able to cope with the needs of the children. Their safety is paramount, and that's what you were doing. She made this bed for herself, obviously trying to slip it in at the last minute to try to avoid a possible no from you earlier. I always hated when parents did not tell me important information about the kids I watched beforehand. I used to watch this one kid that had a bunch of health issues. Besides that, the kid's behavior drove me nuts. Months later, the mother told me that the kid has a mental disability. If I had known that, I would have handled the kid differently than normal. Since it was just an occasional job, I sucked it up. I refused to babysit for her after the mother insulted me. She wanted me to skip classes of college so I could babysit while she worked, since her job was more important than my education. I'm still mad about the kid with severe ADHD who was sent away without her meds because it was a medication vacation. Yeah, she didn't sleep. And because she didn't sleep, neither did I. She was also sent for a week camp with 2 t-shirts, 3 sets of pajamas, and no coat. We had to buy her clothes. Here we see the classic bait and switch by Jennifer. You don't just tell a caretaker, as you're running out the door, that your kids have additional needs and medical conditions. Not the a-hole. Good on you, OP, for stating limitations and not going along with this. You just know that she pulled that BS because she doesn't want to pay the rate for a sitter that specializes in caring for kids with disabilities. Not the a-hole. You don't just get to spring autism and severe food allergies onto someone. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they've had multiple attempted sitters before that bail, so they wanted to try and trap you as they walked out the door. Especially a 16-year-old. That's a lot. Especially one who is meant to order food for the kids. The allergy thing might be a little more reasonable if they had prepared food beforehand and left it with strict instructions that the kids were only to eat the food provided, and also knew that they were staying home all evening. i.e., no parks. I have a kid with severe allergies. Ordering out can be stressful, and I've dealt with this for years. I would never expect a babysitter who had never met my kid before to deal with this. The autism thing is an entirely different thing. My kid also has autism, so speaking from experience there as well. I couldn't imagine not giving a babysitter a heads up. Wow. This is the first thing I thought. The allergies were only a problem because the parents didn't order food ahead. Side note, where's the dad in all this? It was their anniversary dinner, so he's clearly around, but mum gets to do all the work setting up, planning dinner, and handling passing the kids to the babysitter? Angry face. Not the a-hole. The mother should have let you know beforehand. What if her child had an allergic reaction and you didn't know how to use an EpiPen? This. What would have happened to OP if anything had happened to either kid on her watch? A mother who doesn't think about having someone trained to watch her 2 kids? What would she have done to OP if, God forbid, something had happened? I don't see how the mum could even be comfortable with that. Plenty of adults don't know what an allergic reaction looks like, how and when to use an EpiPen, and that you still need to go to the hospital even after administering the EpiPen. One of my kids has anaphylactic food allergies. When he was little, whenever he went to a friend's house, I had a chat with the parents about all of that. As he got older, we talked to his friends about it just in case he had an allergic reaction when no parents were around. And by middle school, he took over explaining it to his friends. When he was in 8th grade and had an allergic reaction while out with friends, one helped him with the EpiPen, and one called me from my son's phone after calling an ambulance. It was a scary situation, but they helped him because they were told how to. You have to have some sort of discussion with whoever is watching your kid when they have severe food allergies. What if OP had just eaten a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on her way to the house and still had some peanut residue on her hands or clothes? Posted by user ThatGingerKid653. Titled, Am I the a-hole for telling my rich parents that my lower-class friends and their families are better people than they could ever dream of being? I'll start by saying that I'm a 17 male. Both my parents are very successful lawyers, and we live in a super nice house. They have given me everything I could ask for, but they're not exactly there for me emotionally. I can't remember the last time we ate dinner together or had a decent conversation. Most of the time, they're not even home, and it's just me. I feel like a ghost in my own house. We moved to a new town not too long ago, and my parents enrolled me in the more exclusive private school in the area. I've gone to private schools my entire life, but my experience at this school was horrible. I'm short, effeminate-looking, and obviously gay. The only reason I didn't get my ass seriously kicked was because my parents are rich. I begged my parents to switch schools, but they were hesitant because the only other option was public schooling. I finally escaped the private school of circle jerking and enrolled in this new school. I guess I should mention that a few years ago, this school district expanded their enrollment zone to slightly cover a lower income area, which resulted in a handful of students from low-income families being enrolled. My first few days at this new school were brutal, with a lot of the same problems following me, until I ran into Garfield. It's a family name. I swear he's not named after a cat. He spoke up and said he would love to be my lab partner when no one else would. We quickly became friends, and he introduced me to his childhood friend also attending the school named Eduardo. Since my parents are so distant to begin with, they never noticed me spending so much time with my new friends. Garfield's mother is a waitress and his dad a construction worker. Eduardo's mother cleans houses and his dad works odd jobs, such as driving for Uber. Both of their families are amazing and involved. I started dating Garfield and had real friends for the first time ever. Both Garfield and Eduardo had come over to my house about twice and met my parents. The other day, my mother pulled me over and casually mentioned that I was spending a lot of time with that blonde boy, Garfield, and the Hispanic kid. She asked what their families did and where they lived, and I told her. She immediately became upset and said I was aiming way below my abilities, and these were not the kind of influences I needed in my life. I asked why, and she said we just live different types of lives, and I'll understand when I'm older. I freaked out and said both of them and their families have been there more for me in the 6 months I've known them than my parents ever have, and that they're cold, unfeeling snobs. My mum started crying and said public school has changed me for the worst. I've never seen her cry before, and I'm starting to feel horrible. Am I the a-hole for saying they're rich hypocrites and that my friends' families are better? It does hurt to see your own mother crying and know that it was your words that caused it. That can definitely be a wake-up call to be like, hey man, maybe I went too far here. maybe I'm an asshole in this situation. But if her words made you cry in this same context, would she feel the same way that you're feeling and question whether she's an a-hole for that one? My money here would be on no. She seems pretty set in her opinion of you and her expectations, and those values obviously don't align with yours. She has to realize that she can't just work 24/7 and neglect her child while still thinking she has any power in shaping who they hang out with when she's not providing that love and care that he wants and needs. She's horribly judgmental, and I would say obviously jealous of this family for being lower than her, yet still worlds apart and caring for you so much where she can't and hasn't in the past. Also, sorry if it's like jumpy with my words, I'm thinking while I'm talking. But yeah, you're not an a-hole for making her cry in this situation. She's neglected you and she can't accept you for who you are and who you associate with. That's a her problem and definitely not a you problem. So I'm going not the a-hole. Now in the comments, Allsai says, wow, not the a-hole at all. I'm sorry your mum is hurt, but not being involved in her kid's life obviously has consequences, and being so judgmental of people with less money doesn't put her in a good light at all, especially if she's encouraging you not to be friends with people who have been so kind to you. I'm glad you have your boyfriend and friend and full offense. I'm glad you're not a snob. And OP replies, thanks for saying that. It just makes me so angry. She's judging them by their class and their parents' income level, and I feel like I can't do anything. Sometimes you have to realize that your parents aren't gods or perfect human beings. They're just people with imperfections, and sometimes those imperfections are pretty extreme. Definitely not the a-hole. I don't think OP is asking for gods or perfect human beings, or even good parents at this point. I get the feeling it's too late to salvage the parent-child relationship at this point without major effort from both OP's parents, which seems unlikely. Even if they did change their behavior, it's for all the wrong reasons. Fear that OP is what they could consider a class traitor rather than actually desiring a relationship with their son. Agreed. They thought money would raise their child for them, and now they're lashing out at the kid forming his first meaningful relationships. There's no way the classist snobby attitude is going to go away without significant effort on the parents' part. And, going off what OP has said, it's unlikely they're going to change their attitude towards him and prioritizing work and their own lives above and beyond his well-being. Not the a-hole, OP. Not the a-hole. I'm sorry, but your family is now laying in the bed they created. Emotional involvement and basic body needs are completely irrelevant from each other. You cannot feed a dog by petting it, and you cannot make it friendly by dropping food randomly. Now add the complexity of a human being on top of that, and the mistake is obvious. If I were you, I would say that your emotional needs are unmet, and the family needs a family counselor/child therapist, etc. If he or she is a professional, he will cut through your parents. Even if your friends were rich, it wouldn't change anything. Their class is irrelevant. You are not changing because of a waitress profession. Give your parents a chance to fix this. And OP says, that's a really good way of putting it. And I honestly think we do need help, but we don't really know how to relate to each other. I don't know. My dad is furious with me and not open to any discussion. Give them an actionable path. Go to therapist, etc. to follow, or they will decide to blame the public school as an easy path. It is good that your family is dealing with this now. If you saw happy families as a grown-up adult, you probably would decide to cut contact or act extremely distant. Now your family has a chance to fix this. Tell them that you want to love them more and be more close to them, but you cannot find a way when they are way too much. You can even say that you're a bit jealous. A simple solution would be to allocate specific appointments for quality family time. Your parents are used to being punctual to the meetings for clients, so now they get to meet with the most important customer, you. That is how high-class people keep up with their family. If you do not plan for family time, you will skip it. That's a nice idea, but doesn't seem to fit OP's circumstances. He already said that Dad is furious and isn't open to any discussion. I don't want to speak on OP's behalf, but I find this group often assumes people's family situations are as liberal as the ones they grew up in. I'm from a household where parents are in charge, and that's it. The idea of making suggestions to my parents on how they should parent or advising them to go to therapy would be laughable. I believe the action suggested is simply so that OP can say that he made an effort and then put the ball in his parents' court. I don't see why OP is expected to be the only party putting an effort into his relationship with his parents. Putting the ball in the court of people who don't want to play by the rules means they take the ball and destroy it and then scream or laugh at you for having passed the ball. You can't possibly make any progress with someone else who is refusing to cooperate with others, so all the effort OP puts in does nothing for the relationship and is emotionally unhealthy for OP. The only way the relationship can improve is if OP's parents choose to work on themselves so they're better people. Alright guys, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you need a good laugh, please do check out my second channel, Markee 2, links down in the description below, or it's going to appear somewhere on the screen here at the end, little bubble with my face on it. As always, a big shout out to my Patreon and channel members. Your faces are surrounding me right now, and I love to have you guys with me, and down in the comment sections of each and every video, and just knowing that you're always there to support me. It's a humbling and lovely feeling. And rest assured, I do see you, and I do notice your support, and I thank you every day for being here and helping me along this journey. Not much else to say besides that, guys. Thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. I do hope that you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to. I will see you in the next video, and thank you again. Bye.